Continuing our reading in Poppy and Ereth by Avi. Today is chapter 31, The Rescue, and chapter 32, Poppy's Funeral. Chapter 31, The Rescue. It was a very frightened Spruce who crouched in the hole beneath a rock, wishing someone were with him, wishing he were home, wishing he had never come. Every few moments he crept to the mouth of the hole and peeked out. All he could be sure of was that the smoke was getting thicker. Maybe, he considered, it would be better if I went down deeper. But even as he began to retreat, he heard the sound of galloping pass by, followed by a soft plop. Then silence. Spruce was afraid to move. It's some animal, he thought. A big animal. It was running. I bet it was running from the fire, the way the rabbit was running. Maybe I shouldn't be hiding, just running. He listened hard, straining to hear if the animal was still there. Hearing nothing, Spruce crawled to the top of the hole and carefully peeked out. Though there was a lot of smoke, he saw nothing of the fire, but he did hear crackling, which told him the fire was close. Then he noticed something on the path. He stared at it. It was a mouse. Next moment, Spruce's heart seemed to turn over. "It's Grandma Poppy!" he shouted. "She's landed!" And he leaped out of the hole and ran to her side. "Grandma Poppy!" he cried, leaning over her. "Are you all right? What was flying like?" When she did not reply, the terrified mouse looked toward the creek. He saw flames coming toward him. They were spreading quickly in all directions, including his, snapping, snarling like angriest of animals. "Grandma!" cried Spruce. "You have to get up!" Poppy stirred and blinked open her eyes. "Spruce?" she cried. "Well, what are you doing here?" I came looking for you," said the young mouse. "Thank you, but why?" Uncle Ereth said you flew away, did you?" "In a way, yes." Poppy sat up and looked around. "Where's Bounder?" "Who?" "The fox who was taking me to warn the family about the fire." A fox?" cried Spruce. "Oh, wow! Do you have a friend who's a fox?" "I suppose you might say so. I fell off. He must not have noticed." She considered Spruce. "I'm glad he didn't." Poppy stood up, gave herself a shake, and then looked in the direction of the fire. The flames were much closer. "Spruce," she said, "we need to get home fast to warn the family." I know, but Grandma, I did find you, didn't I?" "You certainly did," said Poppy with another look at the fire. Now let's run." Okay." They ran down the path at full speed. When they paused to catch their breaths, Spruce asked, "How did you learn to fly?" "Actually, it wasn't me who did the flying, but a bat." "A bat?" cried Spruce, his eyes very big. "Do you have a bat friend, too?" Instead of answering, Poppy looked to see how far the fire had reached. For the moment, they were safe, but she was quite sure their time was short. "Would they take me flying, too?" Spruce asked. "I'm sure they will. Now, less talk. We need to go very fast." It was Ereth's log that they reached first. Poppy turned to Spruce. "Run home and tell your father and mother," she said. "Tell them about the fire. I'll be right here." The young mouse raced away, calling, "Mom! Dad! Everybody! I found Grandma! I really did! She really was flying with her bat friend! I'm going to fly too!" Poppy, meanwhile, plunged into Ereth's log. "Ereth?" she called. "Are you in here? You need to get out." When no reply came, she ran inside, only to discover that the log was deserted. She dashed out and saw Spruce running toward her. Dogbane was with him. When Dogbane saw Poppy, he stopped. "There's no one home," cried Spruce, "except Dogbane with a message for me." "What's the message?" asked Poppy. Dogbane, still staring at Poppy, said, "Everybody was gone to the dell." "Who's everybody?" The whole family." "Why are they doing that?" asked Poppy. stammered Dogbean. It's your funeral. Poppy stood speechless. Spruce tugged on her. Grandma, he said, if it's your funeral, aren't you supposed to be there? Chapter 32, Poppy's Funeral. Ereth was the first to arrive at the site of Poppy's funeral. I'm the mourner-in-chief, he muttered. I should be the first one. He was determined not to budge from his speaking post. No mouse could take his place. Front paws folded under his chest, he gazed at nothing and practiced his smile. The sky turned quite hazy until it became so overcast Ereth was sure it was going to rain, except there was not the slightest scent of rain in the air. On the contrary, it felt drier and hotter than it had all summer. The porcupine lifted his nose and sniffed. There was a strange smell in the air, but nothing he could place. The day's light was beginning to fade when Junior, along with his brothers and sisters, Mariposa, Snowberry, Walnut, Columbine, Sassafras, Crabgrass, Pipsquequa, Verbena, Scrub Oak, and Locust, and their spouses, and all their children and their children's children made their way into the dell. As they came, Ereth stared straight ahead, with only an occasional twitch of his tail and a curt nod to a few mice he knew by name. To all he offered what he considered his best smile. The mice who knew Ereth kept looking at him. He could hear them twitter. What's Ereth smiling about? It can't be a smile. Ereth never smiles. The younger mice stared up at Ereth, too, speaking to one another in whispered undertones. There's the great Ereth. Wow, Poppy's best friend. If he was Poppy's best friend, and this is her funeral, how come he's smiling like that? Maybe he's going to throw up. Guess what? Hey, guess what? Have you heard? Spruce is missing. Ereth heard these words, but he remained quite still and continued to smile. Junior climbed onto the rock and whispered into Ereth's ear. Uncle Ereth, I think everyone is here. We should begin. Fine, replied Ereth, smiling. Uncle Ereth, Junior whispered, you haven't seen Spruce around, have you? No. I'm afraid he's wandered off. One of his brothers said he went looking for Poppy. Oh, he'll never find her, said Ereth, smiling broader. Well, you better begin, said Junior. Better keep to it to a few remarks, okay? I'll speak next. Then some of my brothers and sisters want to speak. But Uncle Ereth? What? Really, why are you smiling? Want to. It's, well, strange. Beat it, snarled the grinning porcupine, and Junior stepped away from the stone, but along with his siblings stayed close. Ereth sat up. Okay, he shouted, loud enough for all in the dell to hear. It's time to begin. Almost 200 mice stopped their conversations and stared up at Ereth, their ears cocked forward with an occasional twitch of a tail. My name, began the porcupine, is Ereth. I suppose you know that. You should know it. If you don't, I'd have to ask why you haven't been paying attention. Anyway, this is all about, Poppy. We all knew Poppy, but no one knew her better than me, since... When Ereth paused to catch his breath, Laura whispered to Junior, That's not a very nice thing to say. The point is, Ereth went on, Junior asked me to make a few remarks to, I suppose I could give a brief summary of Poppy's life, all about her parents, annoying kids, lungwort, sweet Cicely, where she was raised, Grey House. I could mention Ragweed too, briefly. I don't know why, but Poppy always thought Ragweed was something special. Not that I ever met him. Wish I had. I'd have given him a quill up the snoot. Pipsquequa turned to Verbena. That's so rude, Ereth continued. Well, that Ragweed, he was always mixing things up. Mixing up things. Well, even after he died. Don't exactly know how or why, but he was. Ereth shook his head. Or, he continued, I suppose I could tell you about Poppy and that owl, Mr. Okax. Of course, if she hadn't met me, things would have been very different, because it was with one of my quills and with my advice that she defeated him. I thought this was going to be short, Laurel said into Junior's ear. So naturally, Ereth went on, you'll want to know how she met me, how I was able to encourage her, give her a sense of the real world, get her to grow up. Ereth put his paws into his mouth and grinned while gazing down at the puzzled eyes of the mice. Let me see if I can get him to stop, said Junior. He began to move forward. Ereth, seeing Junior coming toward him, hurried on. But then I could explain how Poppy asked me to go with her on a trip to tell Ragweed's parents how Ragweed died. Naturally, I went. And that's how, because of that trip, of which I was in charge, she met Rye. Fell in love with him, married him. Not that I understand why. I could mention Rye's poetry, but I don't want to, because I couldn't stand it. Junior was now close to Ereth. Uncle Ereth? He whispered. Oh, buzz off, furball, muttered Ereth and went on. I could tell you, he said louder than before, in case you never heard about it, about the great battle with the beavers. If it hadn't been for me, all of Ragweed's family, Rye's family, would have been beaten up. Fortunately, I was there. Gave those beavers a few pokes. That battle made it possible for Poppy and Rye to stay together. Me again. Ereth, Junior said, I really think that's enough. Ereth shoved Junior back and boomed on. Oh, anyway, since I was so important in all those happenings, the hero, actually, I could talk about all that too. For instance, Poppy and Rye had children. Too many, if you want to know what I think. Fact is, Poppy and Rye were too young to be parents. Fortunately, I lived close. They used to come and ask me for advice about how to raise you annoying kids. I gave them plenty. In fact, I could give a brief talk about how to be a good parent. Might be useful. Ereth took a deep sigh, caught himself, and grinned. Uncle Ereth, said Junior, standing right next to him, you really need to. No, I'm just getting to the really important part. Ereth muttered under his breath and kept on. So, it would be only right to explain how she felt about me. After all, we were the best friends, best friends, which means I should give a little talk about myself, my early life, how I came to Dimwood Forest. Naturally, I include how I met Poppy. I was saving her from a fox. I could even talk about that fox's children. I took care of them, too. I saved them from starvation. That's me, always helping someone. Ereth, please. Well, and speaking of starvation, I suppose I might explain how I see life here in Dimwood Forest. We could do what we could do once this heat wave passes. Ereth, stop, shouted Junior. Oh, well, I suppose that's enough, said Ereth. For introductory remarks, of course, if there's time, someone else could speak, but they had better keep it short and only about Poppy. Long, self-centered speeches are stupid. Besides, the whole point is, Poppy has gone and died. That's not true, cried a voice from the back of the dell. I'm right here. And that's the end of chapter 32.